recount of Arizona's presidential ballots that's being conducted by a pro-Trump QAnon conspiracy theorist and his private security firm that he calls cyber ninjas. Arizona Republicans hired this guy and gave him 2/3 of the actual ballots cast by real Arizona residents in the presidential race in November. He says he's going to do some sort of secret analysis of those ballots and then report what the real election results were in Arizona. Again, this effort is being led by a QAnon guy who has supported all of the craziest stop the steal conspiracy theories about how Trump didn't really lose the election. Well, here's the news. Until tonight, the only press allowed inside to report on this so-called audit is the wackadoo pro-Trump news network that's called One America News, which has itself relentlessly hyped the Trump conspiracy theories around the election and whose on-air personalities have raised money to conduct this so-called recount in Arizona. One of the only real journalists who actually made it into the room to watch some of this audit was only able to get in because she signed up as a volunteer observer, and that allowed her to be let in on one day. But that was only on the first day of the recount, and she wasn't allowed in after that, and no real journalists have been let in since then. It's just the One America News people. They've got exclusive access. Well, that's all changed finally tonight. That one real reporter who was allowed inside for one day, the intrepid Jen Fifield of the Arizona Republic, tonight said that she has been let back in. She says, in fact, a coalition of Arizona news organizations that fought for better access, they are now being allowed into the room to watch the count, although no one's being made available to answer reporters' questions about what they're seeing. Remember, Jen Fifield is the reporter who noticed on day one that ballot counters were all armed with blue pens. She notified the cyber ninja guy in charge that blue pens actually shouldn't be allowed in around any real ballots because ballot scanners read blue ink. Any marks that any counter made on anybody's ballot could spoil the ballot or change its vote. When she reported that, because she observed it, to the guy running the audit, the QAnon conspiracy theory cyber ninjas guy, he told her that that was news to him. He didn't know there was any problem with blue ink. Here's Jen Fifield's update on that tonight on pens. She says, on pens, there are red and green pens on the counting tables. It appears that the counters are marking their tally sheets with green pens. So now we know what color pen the ballot counters are using. Thanks to journalists for fighting and demanding to be allowed to cover this ridiculous thing. We also now know that some of the ballot inspectors are conducting their inspections of the ballots, looking for counterfeits by hitting the ballots with ultraviolet light, with ultraviolet flashlights. Okay. Also, there's a room that journalists still don't have access to where auditors say they are examining the county's voting machines. That is a room that's not even part of the camera feeds that One America News has been showing to the public. Meanwhile, the Arizona Democratic Party is suing the Republican-controlled Arizona Senate to try to stop this thing from continuing. Today in court, the judge hearing that case said he is mulling a restraining order to potentially stop this thing in its tracks. There's going to be another hearing in that case tomorrow. We may get his ruling then. But if and until that happens, this whole process is continuing to go forward. And this is why former President Trump and his most fervent supporters believe right now that this is the path by which Donald Trump will be reinstated as president and Joe Biden will be exposed as a fraud. Arizona's top elections official, Secretary of State Katie Hobbs, told CNN, quote, "We have so many concerns about this exercise, I kind of don't even want to call it an audit. I think that's an insult to professional auditors everywhere, because in this case, they're making this stuff up as they go along." She said, quote, "I think there was a high level of expectation that whoever had their hands on the ballots and the equipment would adhere to some level of security measures and transparency. That clearly has not happened." Arizona Secretary of State Katie Hobbs joins us next.